Hi, I am Miquel Alfaras, and I'm here to present the Kai paper from Biodata to Somadata. So this is research that has been conducted under the Affected Consortium, which is a Marie Curie innovative training network funded by the ACE 2020. I work at Plux and Jaume I University, together with KTH Stockholm researchers and researchers at Lancaster University in the UK. So the question that we approach in this paper is how can we as designers engage creatively with biosensing technologies? Or rephrasing, how is it that biodata can be approached as a design material? So the results of this paper are presented in the form of artifacts, that is biosensing actuation couplings that lead to design insight. I'm going to be showing you muscle activity, which is coupled to sound, ectodermal activity, which is coupled to temperature feedback on the neck, and movement synchrony tracking that changes sound features. So if we look at biosensing, I think that we could all agree in saying that these technologies are becoming more and more available these days. So for example, you can go grab an EEG sensor and work with brain waves. You can grab an ECG sensor and work with heart data, breathing cycles, ectodermal activity. I can tell you that you're not performing the movement in a good way because I pay attention to your electromyography. I can look at your accelerometry data and tell you that you're not keeping up with your health routines, that you are not achieving the 10,000 steps that you wanted today. And all these use cases are nice, but they stem from health and performance. So we, as designers, having these technologies at hand, we're wondering whether we could do something different. So enter Soma design. Soma design is a design approach that grounds upon the body, and it places importance on the first-person perspective of the designer. So we, in a way, are stepping into the shoes of the user by experiencing ourselves. Soma design also calls for cultivating your somaesthetic appreciation, that is, learning to pay attention to the body, to the perceptions that your body have, and also Soma design calls for engaging in the non-habitual. So in a way, in order to understand the ingrained ways in which we interact or we move, we have to make them strange, to break them apart. So imagine that you are designing a knife for cutting bread. So I would ask you to cut the bread with your non-dominant hand, so that you all of a sudden become aware of the tiny movements that are involved in this activity. So Soma design in terms of tools also uses Feldenkrais therapy, which is a therapy in which we would be guided by an expert that makes us focus in the different parts of the body, and we realize about the differences, connectedness. We also do contact improvisation, which is a type of dance in which we touch each other, we dance with the flow, there's no music. And then we use body sheets a lot, which are sketching tools in which we draw and add words on how we feel before and after doing an exercise, so that we can discuss and reflect upon the changes. So where is it that this design journey started? Well, in fact, it was 2 years ago when KTH was preparing a training event, and they invited Cheryl Agner-Kohler, who you see in the picture, and her research brought this sensitizing lab. The sensitizing lab was an activity aimed at getting us attuned to haptics applied to the body. So here I'm given the role of the sentient body in the middle of the picture. Then there is a research conductor next to me on the left, placing vibration and thermal feedback on my body. And then there is the scribe who is documenting everything on the right. So again, very important, we have roles. We have the sentient body on the right, we have the research conductor playing with the actuation in the middle, and we have the person in charge of documenting. So this way of approaching actuation was very nice, very thought-provoking, actuation close to the body. And we were wondering, okay, could it be that biosensing can be experienced in the same way? So we flew back to Portugal, we took all our sensors, and we came up with a similar protocol. But in fact, we were biased by then by using too much visual representations. Luckily, we were invited by Nottingham Mixed Reality Lab to prepare a Soma design workshop on balance. So we took all our materials, like the Soma bits, which support placing actuation and biosensors around the body. And we had this crazy idea. What if we couple biosensing to actuation? And in fact, it's not that crazy because you are grabbing data from the body and you're making this body aware of the data. So the designer that had the idea had been struggling when crossing a balancing pole, a balancing rod. He would be looking at muscle activity on a screen and not be able to perform the balancing act, not be able to grasp the data meaningfully. Instead, when trying with sound, all of a sudden, we were aware that he was about to fall. So it's not that that anticipation was cool per se, but we were experiencing something altogether. We were sharing the meaning making of muscle activity, and that was amazing. Later on, we were requested to design for synchrony in an event that had to take place in Cattolica di Milano. Here you can see some of our participants playing with body weights and contact improvisation, and Muhammad Umair had this crazy idea of coupling electrodermal activity with heat feedback on the neck. So we would see that the peaks on an EDA signal are translated into heat. And this is cool because you can share your arousal with other partners, for example. But what was particularly amazing was that participants realized that the Peltier element, the thermal element, could be turned upside down, and no longer we rely on heating elements, but now they are cooling off. And this is just reinterpreting the meaning of EDA, because EDA is not only about peaks emerging, but also peaks dissipating slowly. And this was amazing again, that we had turned a material, the biodata, into something tangible that we can shape, that we can change. Later on, we created this coupling of movement synchrony, which is based on accelerometry, two accelerometers that are deviating a chord that is played by the computer, and the chord would change pitch when these two artifacts don't move altogether. So when given to participants, they come up with choreographies. They don't speak to each other but move all together. And they even realized that this mechanism was only working in one direction. So these were pretty simple accelerometers and only worked in an axis. So again, they are appropriating the technology, they are appropriating the meaning making of the data. So by these examples, we created what we call Somadata. So Somadata are experiences of biodata from the first person perspective, again, stepping into the shoes of the users. Experiences that enable collective meaning making, so something that is shared among the Soma design group. And Somadata doesn't constrain the activity that you are designing for. So if you are designing for balance, for swimming, you don't pick sensors that ruin that activity. So in this paper, I hope that I have convinced you, or that we have convinced you, that making Somadata available to design is possible, that we call for sensitizing ourselves, and that biosensor data is no longer seen as raw data, but socio-digital material to be experienced and molded. So we shape the digital materials, but they shape us. They shape our movements, behaviors, and attitudes. This research is paving our future direction on orchestration or widening the range of possibilities in actuation and sensing. And also, we are more towards sharing the first-person perspectives. So we have shown how we create designer engagement. It's only our path to Somadata, how we get attuned to our bodies. And we hope to see that more examples of Somadata will emerge in the near future. So These are only our examples, but Somadata is about a much wider range of possibilities that I hope to see. Thanks for your attention.